take a closer look tonight at privacy and security. We all know there's a debate in the country. Does giving the government greater freedom to keep an eye on people, others would say spy on people, in the name of security, undermine the basic American commitment to individual freedom? The Pentagon is currently testing something called the Total Information Awareness Program. The American Civil Liberties Union calls it the most extensive surveillance program in history. And what adds to the controversy is the man who's being named to run it. Here's ABC's Jackie Judd.
This is what the government would monitor: where Americans travel, what they buy, how much money they withdraw. Electronic records from all of those activities and more dumped directly into the Pentagon.
Driver's license, information about where people live, phone numbers. Conceivably, you could add in information that's obtained by law enforcement.
The Pentagon believes that by putting all this into supercomputers, suspicious patterns masked as everyday activities would emerge.
You're looking for trends and transactions that are associated with some potential terrorist act. That's what you're looking for, and you're trying to put those pieces together.
Supporters of the Total Information Awareness Project say private industries such as credit rating companies already collects a lot of this material, so why not let the government take a look?
We owe more to the victims of September 11 than just to say, oh yeah, well, we did a bad job last time, but it's too dangerous to try to do a better job next time.
Normally, though, authorities would have to get a warrant for electronic surveillance.
The big deal is that the government is proposing to arrest people on the basis of this. The government's proposing to label people as terrorists, to have an impact upon their lives in a very direct and significant way.
Not only is the idea controversial, so is the person who came up with it and is running the pilot project.
Admiral, do you swear?
President Reagan's national security advisor, John Poindexter, was convicted, then cleared on a technicality of lying to Congress during the Iran-Contra scandal. The test run now underway could take a few years, and real information, say officials, is not being used. But the Pentagon is clearly moving to create the largest electronic eye ever to look at any and all Americans. Jackie Judd, ABC News, Washington.
Begin transmission. This is a message from the anonymous charity also known as The Collective. Today's broadcast date is May 16th, 2019. This message is being transmitted on our backup channel for good reason. Please enable the English US subtitles for maximum understanding of this broadcast. Let's begin. Facebook. We all know the links that DARPA's LifeLog project had with it, right? But what was the before LifeLog? DARPA didn't just decide to create LifeLog as a pilot program, right? Actually, they began years before Facebook's official creation on February 4, 2004 and DARPA's termination of its LifeLog project on the very same day. Let's introduce you to a man named John Poindexter. Dr. John Poindexter was the director of the Information Awareness Office of DARPA, also known as IAO. The Information Awareness Office, IAO, was established by the United States Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, DARPA, in January 2002 to bring together several DARPA projects focused on applying surveillance and information technology to track and monitor terrorists and civilians and other asymmetric threats to U.S. national security by achieving total information awareness. Take note, Facebook was launched as FaceMash in July of 2003, in Zuckerberg's second year of college, just over a year after the official launch of DARPA's IAO in January 2002. The IAO was established after Admiral John Poindexter, former United States National Security Advisor to President Ronald Reagan, and SAIC executive Brian Hicks approached the U.S. Department of Defense with the idea for an information awareness program after the attacks of September 11, 2001. Poindexter and Hicks had previously worked together on intelligence technology programs for the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency. DARPA agreed to host the program and appointed Poindexter to run it in 2002. The IAO began funding research and development of the Total Information Awareness, TIA, program in February 2003 but renamed the program the Terrorism Information Awareness Program in May that year after an adverse media reaction to the program's implications for public surveillance. Although TIA was only one of several EAU projects, many critics and news reports conflated TIA with other related research projects of the EAU, with the result that TIA came in popular usage to stand for an entire subset of EAU programs. The TIA program itself was the systems-level program of the EAU that intended to integrate information technologies into a prototype system to provide tools to better detect, classify, and identify potential terrorists with the goal to increase the probability that authorized agencies of the United States could preempt adverse actions. As a systems-level program of programs, TIA's goal was the creation of a counter-terrorism information architecture that integrated technologies from other EAU programs, and elsewhere, as appropriate. The TIA program was researching, developing, and integrating technologies to virtually aggregate data, to follow subject-oriented link analysis, to develop descriptive and predictive models through data mining or human hypothesis, and to apply such models to additional datasets to identify terrorists and terrorist groups. Among the other EAU programs that were intended to provide TIA with component data aggregation and automated analysis technologies were the GENESIS privacy protection, evidence extraction, and link discovery, and scalable social network analysis programs, to name but a few. On August 2, 2002, Dr. Poindexter gave a speech at DARPA Touch 2002 entitled Overview of the Information Awareness Office, in which he said, quote, "Good afternoon. Today I would like to tell you about the new Information Awareness Office and the programs we are developing. To introduce this I have a short video for you. The world has changed dramatically since the Cold War when there existed two superpowers. During the years I was in the White House it was relatively simple to identify our intelligence collection targets. It was sometimes hard to collect the intelligence, but the targets were clear. Today, we are in a world of asymmetries. The most serious asymmetric threat facing the United States is terrorism, a threat characterized by collections of people loosely organized in shadowy networks that are difficult to identify and define and whose goals are the destruction of our way of life. The intelligence collection targets are thousands of people whose identities and whereabouts we do not always know. It is somewhat analogous to the anti-submarine warfare problem of finding submarines in an ocean of noise. We must find the terrorists in a world of noise, understand what they are planning, and develop options for preventing their attacks. If we are to preserve our national security, we must figure out a way of combating this threat. I think the solution is largely associated with information technology. We must become much more efficient and more clever in the ways we find new sources of data, mine information from the new and old, generate information, make it available for analysis, convert it to knowledge, and create actionable options. We must also break down the stovepipes, at least punch holes in them. By this, I mean we must share and collaborate between agencies, and create and support high-performance teams operating on the edges of existing organizations. Tools are needed to facilitate these collaborations, and to support these teams that work to ensure our security. The Information Awareness Office at DARPA is about creating technologies that would permit us have both security and privacy. More than just making sure that different databases can talk to one another, we need better ways to extract information from those unified databases, and to ensure that the private information on innocent citizens is protected. The main point is that we need a much more systematic approach. A variety of tools, processes and procedures will be required to deal with the problem, but they must be integrated by a systems approach built around a common architecture to be effective. Total information awareness, a prototype system, is our answer. We must be able to detect, classify, identify, and track terrorists so that we may understand their plans and act to prevent them from being executed. To protect our rights, we must ensure that our systems track the terrorists, and those that mean us harm. Our programs are focused on making total information awareness, TIA, real. This is a high-level, visionary, functional view of the worldwide system, somewhat oversimplified. One of the significant new data sources that needs to be mined to discover and track terrorists is the transactions space. If terrorist organizations are going to plan and execute attacks against the United States, their people must engage in transactions and they will leave signatures in this information space. This is a list of transaction categories, and it is meant to be inclusive. Currently, terrorists are able to move freely throughout the world, to hide when necessary, to find sponsorship and support, and to operate in small, independent cells, and to strike infrequently, exploiting weapons of mass effects and media response to influence governments. We are painfully aware of some of the tactics that they employ. This low-intensity/low-density form of warfare has an information signature. We must be able to pick this signal out of the noise. Certain agencies and apologists talk about connecting the dots, but one of the problems is to know which dots to connect. The relevant information extracted from this data must be made available in large-scale repositories with enhanced semantic content for easy analysis to accomplish this task. The transactional data will supplement our more conventional intelligence collection. While our goal is total information awareness, there will always be uncertainty and ambiguity in trying to understand what is being planned. That's why our tools have to build models of competing hypotheses. That is, we need to bring people with diverse points of view together in a collaborative environment where there is access to all source data, discovery tools and model building tools. Collaboration has not been so important in the past when problems were less complex, but now it is essential. And tools have to make the analysis process more efficient, to properly explore the multiple possibilities. This is the analytical environment. I could have called it the intelligence community, but in the case of counterterrorism, it is broader to include law enforcement, friendly allies, outside experts, etc. A similar environment exists for the policy and operations community, but the functions and tools are different. The mission here is to take the competing hypotheses from the analytical environment and estimate a range of plausible futures. The objective is to identify common nodes, representing situations that could occur, and to explore the probable impact of various actions or interventions that authorities might make in response to these situations. The Information Awareness Office has a number of ongoing projects to address the functional requirements of this vision, and we will be starting new projects to complete the picture. The program managers who follow will give you the details, but I want to show you how they all fit into this system plan. Jonathan Phillips is working on human identification at distance to achieve positive identification of humans using multimodal biometric technologies. Such a system could be used for security systems, for example, or could be used to track potential terrorists. Doug Dyer is starting a new program called Genesis, which addresses our database needs. This project will imagine and develop ultra-large-scale, semantically rich, easily implementable database technologies. One goal is to develop ways of treating the worldwide, distributed, legacy databases as if they were one centralized database, and another is to develop privacy protection technologies. Charles Wayne leads the programs called Tides and Years. These projects address our needs in natural language processing, to provide discovery tools for finding information in foreign languages and converting speech to text. Automated tools are essential in order to reduce our need for expert foreign language translators and listeners in the thousands of existing human languages. TED Senator is the program manager for EILD, which stands for Evidence Extraction and Link Discovery. This is a key program in the area of tools for discovery of information. I will let Ted tell you the details on how this goes beyond traditional data mining techniques. Wargaming the Asymmetric Environment is led by Larry Willis. This is an essential component of our modeling efforts. Biosurveillance is another of Ted Senator's programs looking at novel data sources for early warning of the release of biological agents. Tom Armour is back on the DARPA team to extend the work on the Genoa project with a new program that we have creatively named Genoa 2. I told him he had to come back to finish his work. As some of you know, I've been working on Genoa for the past 6 years. We have transitioned some of the Genoa tools and will build on the past work primarily to address tools for collaborative reasoning, estimating plausible futures and creating actionable options for the decision maker. While the original Genoa project was aimed primarily at supporting intelligence analysis, under Genoa 2 we plan to focus on supporting policy and decision-making at strategic levels. The overarching program that binds the IA's efforts together is Total Information Awareness, or TIA system. The primary goal of TIA is the integration and assured transition of components developed in the programs Genoa, Genoa 2, Genesis, EILD, TIDES, Human ID and Biosurveillance. TIA will develop a modular system architecture using open standards that will enable a spiral development effort that will allow the insertion of new components when they are available. We will produce a complete, end-to-end, closed-loop prototype system in a realistic environment. To accomplish this, we have established an organization whose structure is as diagrammed here. We will supplement the programs in IA with commercial and other government components to rapidly implement early versions of TIA's system at our R&D laboratory. We have already begun a spiral development and experiment program in conjunction with Army partners. Over the next few years we will continuously add functionality to the system as components become available. Where will IA's projects get data in order to develop their algorithms? To proceed with development, without intruding on domestic or foreign concerns. We are creating a database of synthetic transactions using a simulation model. This will generate billions of transactions constituting realistic background noise. We will insert into this noise simulated transactions by a red team acting as a terrorist organization to see if we can detect and understand this activity. In the Genesis program, we will be investigating the DARPA hard problem of developing technologies that can give us the capability to detect foreign terrorist activities in this transaction space and achieve enhanced privacy for the innocents. There are significant information policy issues related when considering data mining in actual transaction spaces. The US, and other countries as well, have just begun to consider some of the issues and consequences. There are ways in which technology can help preserve rights and protect people's privacy while helping to make us all safer. We are taking a number of steps to begin a reasoned discussion of the policy issues, imbued with knowledge of technology capabilities. DARPA's Information Systems and Technology Panel, ISAT, has been tasked with a summer study on how we can achieve the necessary security we need and still have privacy. Discussions have been started with the National Academy of Sciences to do a longer-range study on information policy for the info space of the future. We believe that total information awareness is a very difficult problem and in the tradition of the very hard problems that DARPA has addressed in the past. We think we have some very good ideas about how to solve the problem. IA has an open bar that was issued last March, and will be open for a year. We will be funding some of the good ideas that we have already received, but if you have good ideas that we haven't seen yet, please tell us about them. The bar is on the DARPA website. I believe the ultimate solution to countering terrorism requires a co-evolution in 4 areas: technology, process, operations, policy, and culture. Our focus is on developing the technology, the first area, and making sure that decisions in the other areas, such as policy, are knowledgeable about what is possible and what isn't. It's an exciting area, and I am proud of the contributions that we will all be collectively making to national security. Thank you. Now you will hear from the program managers. End quote. Please note that BA as mentioned refers to a broad agency announcement. The Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, DARPA, often selects its research efforts through the Broad Agency Announcement, BAA, process. See links below for the original Broad Agency announcements regarding LifeLog and other DARPA projects. Link DARPA funding research below. It's important to note that DARPA insisted in 2003 that LifeLog will not be used for clandestine surveillance, and the agency's Jan Walker also said there is no relationship between LifeLog and the Pentagon's Terrorism Information Awareness Project. Do you believe that? Of course they would say that. As we will show you, it was all one in the same. Now listen very, very carefully. In early 2003, Dr. Douglas Gage was the point of contact for a new BAR, Broad Agency Announcement, labeled BAR number 0330. LifeLog, Propose Information Pamphlet. This BAR had a proposal closing date of June 23, 2003. Exactly 1 month before Facebook, then known as FaceMash, was launched in July 2003. This means it was created and at least 1 year prior to announcement. It read as follows. Quote, the Information Processing Technology Office, IPTO, of the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, DARPA, is soliciting proposals to develop an ontology-based subsystem that captures, stores, and makes accessible the flow of one person's experience in and interactions with the world in order to support a broad spectrum of associates, assistants and other system capabilities. The objective of this LifeLog concept is to be able to trace the threads of an individual's life in terms of events, states, and relationships. Functionally, the LifeLog subsystem consists of 3 components: data capture and storage, representation and abstraction, and data access and user interface. LifeLog accepts as input a number of raw physical and transactional data streams. Through inference and reasoning, LifeLog generates multiple layers of representation at increasing levels of abstraction. The input data streams are abstracted into sequences of events and states, which are aggregated into threads and episodes to produce a timeline that constitutes an episodic memory for the individual. Patterns of events in the timeline support the identification of routines, relationships, and habits. Preferences, plans, goals, and other markers of intentionality are at the highest level. LifeLog is interested in 3 major data categories: physical data, transactional data, and context or media data. Anywhere, anytime capture of physical data might be provided by hardware worn by the LifeLog user. Visual, oral, and possibly even haptic sensors capture what the user sees, hears, and feels. GPS, digital compass, and inertial sensors capture the user's orientation and movements. Biomedical sensors capture the user's physical state. LifeLog also captures the user's computer-based interactions and transactions throughout the day from email, calendar, instant messaging, web-based transactions, as well as other common computer applications, and stores the data, or, in some cases, pointers to the data, in appropriate formats. Voice transactions can be captured through recording of telephone calls and voicemail, with the called and calling numbers as metadata. Fax and hard copy written material, such as postal mail, can be scanned. Finally, LifeLog also captures, or at least captures pointers to, the tremendous amounts of context data the user is exposed to every day from diverse media sources, including broadcast television and radio, hard copy newspapers, magazines, books and other documents, and soft copy electronic books, websites, and database access. LifeLog can be used as a standalone system to serve as a powerful automated multimedia diary and scrapbook. By using a search engine interface, the user can easily retrieve a specific thread of past transactions, or recall an experience from a few seconds ago or from many years earlier in as much detail as is desired, including imagery, audio, or video replay of the event. In addition to operating in this standalone mode, LifeLog can also serve as a subsystem to support a wide variety of other applications, including personal, medical, financial, and other types of assistance, and various teaching and training tools. As increasing numbers of people acquire LifeLogs, collaborative tasks could be facilitated by the interaction of LifeLogs, and properly anonymized access to LifeLog data might support medical research and the early detection of an emerging epidemic. Application of the LifeLog abstraction structure in a synthesizing mode will eventually allow synthetic game characters and humanoid robots to lead more realistic lives. However, the initial LifeLog development is tightly focused on the standalone system capabilities, and does not include the broader class of assistive, training, and other applications that may ultimately be supported. LifeLog technology will support the long-term vision of a new class of truly cognitive systems that can reason in a variety of ways, using substantial amounts of appropriately represented knowledge, can learn from experiences so that their performance improves as they accumulate knowledge and experience, can explain their actions and can accept direction, can be aware of their own behavior and reflect on their own capabilities, and can respond in a robust manner to surprises. Task areas. This solicitation seeks proposals to develop and demonstrate LifeLog system-level capabilities as described in the following tasks. Task 1. Representation and abstraction via reasoning and inference. The research focus of the LifeLog program is the appropriate placement of transactional and physical data within an appropriate framework of representations and abstractions to make accessible both the flow of the user's physical experiences in the world and the stream of his or her interactions with other entities in the world. For transactional data, this process of representation and abstraction might begin with the association of metadata with each data item. For example, the header information in an email or the information on the envelope of a physical letter. Physical data streams generally have to be parsed into meaningful chunks, such as saccadic scenes of video, motion segments in GPS or inertial data, or segments of one person's speech in audio, and these chunks have to be labeled. The key challenge of LifeLog is to make sense of this ongoing sequence of multimodal transactions and labeled chunks of physical data, by sorting it into discrete events and states, whose transitions are marked by events, and threads, consisting of sequences of events and states, and episodes, with beginnings and ends, and to do this automatically and recursively until an extended episode can be identified and labeled as, for example, I took the 8:30 a.m. flight from Washington's Reagan National Airport to Boston's Logan Airport. The representational path from the raw physical sensor inputs to this high-level description includes concepts of walking, standing, and riding, being indoors and outdoors, being at home, a taxi, and going through airport security. The task can be made considerably easier because LifeLog can also process a going to Boston entry in the calendar program, email from the airline telling that the flight is on time, and a phone call ordering the taxi, and can correlate GPS readings to a Cots Street map. Beyond the generation of the user's individual timeline or history, represented as a structure of labeled threads and episodes, LifeLog will be able to find meaningful patterns in the timeline, to infer the user's routines, habits, and relationships with other people, organizations, places, and objects, and to exploit these patterns to ease its task. The proposal should describe in detail exactly how the IFRA's LifeLog system will accomplish this process of tracing the threads and telling the story of the user's experience. State how physical sensory inputs will be parsed and classified, labeled. Define the metadata to be used for each type of input data. Describe how the representation hierarchy is to be constructed, and how classification of events, states, etc., will be performed. Explicitly address the extraction of patterns such as routines, habits, and relationships. Present an approach for assessing the contribution of each data source proposed to LifeLog system-level performance. provide a comparison of the relative importance of human knowledge engineering and machine learning components both during system development and when deployed. Discuss the tools to be provided to the user to support the visualization and manual generation and editing of the representational hierarchy. Task 2. Data capture and storage subsystem. LifeLog must acquire data to capture both the user's physical experiences in the world and his or her interactions with other entities in the world. The specific types and fidelity of data to be captured should be driven by the needs implied by the IFRS approach to Task 1. Physical data is captured by various physical sensors and is stored as multiple data streams in appropriate formats at appropriate resolutions. Transactional data is extracted principally from a number of computer applications. Detectors, recognizers, analysis tools, and heuristics are used to distill the data, associating metadata, flagging keywords, and otherwise preparing the data for further categorization in terms of representations at various levels of abstraction. Data capture capability must be adequate to support the development of LifeLog, but should not involve new development of sensors. The proposal should identify the sources and modalities of physical, transactional, and context media data to be captured, and also the specific sensors and deployment, for example, wearable, means to be used for gathering physical data, and the methods to be used to acquire transactional and context media data. The proposal should identify the data storage components to be employed and provide an estimate of the volume of data of each type to be stored per unit time. Selection rationale for components, including critical specifications and estimated costs, should be presented. LifeLog system integration should be specifically addressed, together with power and endurance issues. IFRS must also address human subject approval, data privacy and security, copyright, and legal considerations that would affect their LifeLog development process. Leverage of existing hardware and software is highly encouraged, and LifeLog should interface to commonly used computer applications. Task 3. Data access and user interface subsystem. The initial LifeLog prototype implementation must provide a functional application programming interface, API, as well as a standalone user data access capability which is envisioned to be a search engine-style interface allowing functions, for example, less than, greater than, booleans, of the various metadata parameters. IFRS should propose additional features to enhance the user interface, for example, time-aligned displays, and to augment the API to support use by additional applications. The developmental interface should also provide a query capability to enable the user to learn why the system behaved as it did. In addition, the intervention tools to enable the user to manually create metadata, assign classifications, and edit the abstraction hierarchy. The capabilities of the proposed access scheme should be described in terms of the flexibility of access queries to be supported, of primary concern, and expected performance, such as response time. Leveraging of existing software is encouraged, since the user interface is not the principal subject of research for LifeLog. Task 4. Experimentation and performance assessment. The successful development of LifeLog will require extensive experimentation to provide both the system and its developers with enough experience to be representative of use in the real world. The first LifeLog users will clearly be the developer team itself, and, once a critical initial threshold of capability has been achieved, the results of this use should be documented as longitudinal studies. Operating conditions should not be controlled, and a broad spectrum of both physical and transactional data should be captured over weeks of continuous real-world use. The proposal should address performance assessment over these longitudinal studies, and address the metrics of completeness of the ontology and correctness of the LifeLog's classification decisions. The LifeLog program also includes a challenge problem in the form of a system demonstration while taking a trip to Washington, D.C. Travel combines physical activity, movement via a variety of conveyances, and a diversity of transactions, email, calendar, financial, itinerary, etc., over the course of a trip. The travel challenge consists of an uncontrolled trip from the user's home to Washington, plus controlled trials involving travel over a government-prescribed course within the DC area, each trial lasting less than 1 day. Each proposer is encouraged to have at least 3 LifeLog users participate in the travel challenge. Proposals should include plans for participation in these experiments, specifically including a plan for measuring the performance of the LifeLog system in terms of correctness and completeness. The performance metric for correctness of system decisions addresses 1. What fraction of events are correctly detected and properly classified in the abstraction hierarchy? And 2. How capable is the system of learning to improve its detection and classification performance? The performance metric for completeness of the ontology considers 1. What fraction of events require additions to the set of existing representations? And 2. How capable is the system of learning to add and use new representations? The results of the travel challenge will be a major determinant of the scope and course of future LifeLog development, including the exercise of proposed options. Aforers should also propose other challenge activities in addition to the travel challenge to demonstrate and assess the richness of the LifeLog representation structure and complexity of the domain, task and environment. Additional metrics should also be proposed. Task 5. Options for advanced LifeLog development. The base efforts solicited by this bar address critical issues that must be tackled to demonstrate a basic LifeLog capability. However, many other equally critical and challenging issues must be addressed to realize a fully deployable LifeLog subsystem. Therefore, the proposal may include one or more options to perform additional work addressing relevant technical questions, including but not limited to the following. How should the LifeLog system enforce security and privacy, given that different data sources may require different restrictions, I.e., classified, proprietary, Privacy Act, on each data element, and a given item of data may be acquired from more than one source? How should different people's LifeLog systems interact with each other? For example, if each person's LifeLog understands only her own speech perfectly, how should multiple LifeLogs share information so that each can acquire and store all parts of a conversation? How should LifeLog be implemented so that it can degrade gracefully in its access modes, storage resources, and capture capabilities? How can the domain of intentionality, plans and goals, above the level of timeline or history be more fully developed so that LifeLog can effectively support the broadest possible spectrum of assistive and training applications? Proposed options should include a clear statement of the functionality and performance benefits envisioned, and should define metrics to support the assessment of these benefits. Program scope. This solicitation seeks proposals that address the development of system-level LifeLog capabilities and which fully address tasks 1 through 4. A proposal that instead focuses on one or more specific individual technologies will be considered, but to be successful it must make a clearly convincing case that the effort would provide an extremely high payoff. Proposed efforts should cover a base 18-month period of performance and may include one or more options, whose period of performance should not exceed 24 months. The project schedule must include an initial kickoff meeting, an engineering design review 6 months after award to approve the architecture and implementation plan, a principal investigators meeting 9 months after award, and a final project review associated with the travel challenge, 16 months after award. Up to 4 awards are anticipated, and teaming is highly encouraged. Proposed research should investigate innovative approaches and techniques that lead to or enable revolutionary advances in the state-of-the-art. Proposals are not limited to the specific strategies listed above, and alternative visions will be considered. However, Proposals should be for research that substantially contributes towards the goals stated. Research should result in prototype hardware and or software demonstrating integrated concepts and approaches. Specifically excluded is research that primarily results in evolutionary improvement to the existing state of practice or focuses on a specific system or solution. Integrated solution sets embodying significant technological advances are strongly encouraged over narrowly defined research endeavors. Proposals may involve other research groups or industrial cooperation and cost sharing. The establishment of LifeLog as an approved DARPA program is dependent upon the quality of the responses to this bar. End quote. On June 5, 2003, a New York Times article, Dear DARPA Diary by William Safire, reads, quote, Unless you work for the government or the mafia, it's a great idea to keep a diary. I don't mean the minute-by-minute log that Florida Senator Bob Graham keeps in tidy, color-coded notebooks describing his clothes, meals and haircuts. That echoes the mythical Greek Narcissus. Rather, I have in mind the brief notation of the day's highlight, the amusing encounter or useful insight that will someday evoke a memory of yourself when young. Such a journal entry, perhaps an email to your encoded personal file, can now be supplemented by scanned-in articles, poems or pictures to create a commonplace book. You will then have a private memory jogger and resource for reminiscence at family gatherings. But beware too much of a good thing. The Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, or DARPA, stimulates outside-the-box thinking that has given us the internet and the stealth bomber. On occasion, however, DARPA goes off half-cocked. Its total, now terrorist, information awareness plan, to combine all commercial credit data and individual bank and academic records with FBI and CIA dossiers, which would have made every American's life an open book, has been reined in somewhat by Congress after we privacy nuts hollowed to high heaven. Comes now LifeLog, the all-remembering cyber diary. Do you know those handheld personal digital assistants that remind you of appointments, store phone numbers and birthdays, tip you off to foibles of friends and vulnerabilities of enemies, and keep desperate global executives in unremitting touch day and night? Forget about them. Those wireless whiz-bangs are already yestertech. DARPA's LifeLog initiative is part of its cognitive computing research. The goal is to teach your computer to learn by your experience, so that what has been your digital assistant will morph into your lifelong partner in memory. DARPA is sprinkling around $7.3 million in research contracts, a drop in its $2.7 billion budget, to develop PAL, the perceptive assistant that learns. For those who suspect that I am dreaming this up, get that lumbering old machine in your back pocket to access www.darpa.mil web link, and then click on Research Areas and then LifeLog. You are then in a world like years beyond the Matrix into virtual Graham-land. To build a cognitive computing system, says ProtoPal, a user must store, retrieve and understand data about his or her past experiences. This entails collecting diverse data. The research will determine the types of data to collect and when to collect it. This diverse data can include everything you, the user, see, smell, taste, touch and hear every day of your life. But wouldn't the ubiquitous partner be embarrassing at times? Relax, says the program description, presumably written by Dr. Doug Gage, who didn't answer my calls, emails or frantic telepathy. The goal of the data collection is to see what I see rather than to see me. Users are in complete control of their own data collection efforts, decide when to turn the sensors on or off and decide who will share the data. That's just dandy for the personal privacy of the user, who would be led to believe he controlled the only copy of his infinitely detailed profile. But what about the UC, the person that PAL's user is looking at, listening to, sniffing or conspiring with to blow up the world? The human user may have opted in control of the wireless wire he is secretly wearing, but all the people who come in contact with palace willing use a spy would be ill-used without their knowledge. Result: everybody would be snooping on everybody else, taping and sharing that data with the government and the last media conglomerate left standing. And in the basement of the Pentagon, LifeLog's Dr. Gage and his pal, the totally aware Admiral Poindexter, would be dumping all this voluntary data into a national memory bank, which would have undeniable recall of everything you would just as soon forget. Followers of Ned Ludd, who in 1799 famously destroyed two nefarious machines knitting hosiery, hope that Congress will ask, is the computer our servant or our partner? Are diaries personal, or does the Pentagon have a right to LifeLog? End quote. In January 2004, Zuckerberg began writing code for a new website, known as the Facebook, with the inspiration coming from an editorial in the Crimson about FaceMash, stating that it is clear that the technology needed to create a centralized website is readily available. The benefits are many. Zuckerberg met with Harvard student Eduardo Saverin, and each of them agreed to invest $1,000 in the site. On February 4, 2004, Zuckerberg launched it under the name of the Facebook, originally located at thefacebook.com. Let's look at this very telling timeline of events. January 2002, the Information Awareness Office, IAO, was established by DARPA. See link DARPA 1 below. The OWL logo even includes the all-seeing eye and pyramid. January 2002, John Poindexter and Brian Hicks appointed to run IAO. March 21, 2002, IAO puts out broad agency announcement, BAR 0208, seeking strong, responsive proposals from well-qualified sources to develop information technologies to help prevent continued terrorist attacks on the citizens, institutions, and property of the United States and its allies. Link BAR 0208A1 below. Late 2002 to early 2003, Dr. Douglas Gage was the point of contact for a new BAR, broad agency announcement, labeled BAR 0330 LifeLog, propose information pamphlet. BARs are often open for referrers from 3 to 12 months. Link BAR 0330 below. August 2, 2002, John Poindexter gave a speech at DARPA Touch 2002 entitled, Overview of the Information Awareness Office. Link DARPA Touch below. January 16, 2003, Senator Russ Feingold introduced legislation to suspend the activity of the IAO and the Total Information Awareness Program pending a congressional review of privacy issues involved. February 2003, the IAO begins funding research and development of the Total Information Awareness, TIA, program. February 2003, Congress passed legislation suspending activities of the IAO pending a congressional report of the office's activities. May 20, 2003, in response to this legislation, DARPA provided Congress with a report on its activities. In this report, IAO changed the name of the program to the Terrorism Information Awareness Program and emphasized that the program was not designed to compile dossiers on U.S. citizens, but rather to research and develop the tools that would allow authorized agencies to gather information on terrorist networks. Despite the name change and these assurances, the critics continued to see the system as prone to potential misuse or abuse. June 23, 2003. BAR number 0330 LifeLog. Closing date for all submissions. July 2003, FaceMash launched by Zuckerberg. Early January 2004, as a result of the congressional hearing into House and Senate negotiators moved to prohibit further funding for the TIA program by adding provisions to the Department of Defense Appropriations Act, 2004. February 4, 2004 LifeLog terminated, along with all IAO projects like Babylon, Genoa 1 and 2, HID, Tides, Y, Ears, Aild and of course TIA. February 4, 2004, the Facebook is launched. There is way too much information here to digest right now. You're probably mind blown as were we. What we suggest you do is once you have watched this, go through the links below we have mentioned. Our next broadcast will be on the previously unknown DARPA staffers who have gone on to work for big tech companies like Facebook. There is a transcript of this transmission as well. See the last link. This has been a message from We the People. End of transmission.